Welcome back to Building Games on AWS. In this series, we'll show you the simplest way to integrate Amazon GameLift with Unreal Engine. In this episode, we'll go over how to build your own dedicated server in Unreal Engine version 4.26. Note that this is the latest version of Unreal Engine that the GameLift SDK support as of the recording of this video. The prerequisite for this episode is having access to the Unreal Engine source code as well as building the engine from source. Now I won't be going over the process of getting access to the Unreal Engine source code or how to build the engine from source, but there will be links in the description to official Unreal Engine documentation on how you could do this. Please review these documentations prior to proceeding with this episode and the rest of this series. Before we dive into the Unreal Editor, there are a few things we need to make sure are installed in our development environment. Open up your Visual Studio installer. For this series, we'll use Visual Studio Community 2017. You might run into errors if you use the 2019 version. Click on Modify, and in the Workloads tab, make sure you have the Game Development with C++ checked. Then in the Individual Components tab, make sure you have a minimum of .NET Framework 4.6.2 SDK, as well as the targeting packs for all the previous .NET frameworks. Under Code Tools, make sure you have Git for Windows checked. Then under Compilers, Build Tools, and Runtimes, make sure you have checked C# and Visual Basic Roslyn compilers, MS Build, and C++ tools for CMake. And if you need to, proceed to install all of those dependencies. After you've successfully built the Unreal Engine from source, the root directory of your engine should look something like this. Double-click on UE4.sln file to open up the Unreal Engine in Visual 2017. You should have built the engine with Development Editor as the solution configuration, Win64 as the solution platform, and you should have also set UE4 as the startup project. Click on Local Windows Debugger. If this is the first time you launch the Unreal Editor this way, you might be stuck at initializing at 39% or 45%. This is your shaders compiling. You might be stuck in this stage for 20 to 30 minutes. Once we're in the Unreal Project Browser, click on Games under New Project Categories, then click Next. Then click on Third Person Template and click Next. In the project settings, we'll select C++ as the project type. Make sure your project is targeted for desktop/console and include the starter content. If you haven't already done so, create a folder for your project file. And for this series, I'll name our project GameLift-UE4 and click Create Project. This will create a new Visual Studio window. After your project has finished initializing, close out of all of the Visual Studio windows. Then navigate to the folder where you stored your project. This is the project we just created. And this is the root directory of our project. So the first thing we have to do is create the server target build file. So to do this, from your project root directory, double-click on source, and you should see two target build files already there. Make note these are C# files. So to create our server target build files, we'll make a copy of the editor target build file. And we can rename it. But instead of editor, it will be GameLift-UE4 server, or the name of your project with the server suffix. Then we'll proceed to edit this file. Here I'm using Notepad, but feel free to use a lightweight code editor of your preference. So there are three places where we have to make edits to this file. The first is in the class name where it says editor. Replace that with server. And then in the constructor, and finally, where it says type equal target type dot editor, we need that to be target type dot server. Then we can save and close out of it. Navigate back to your project root. Right-click on the Unreal project file and select Generate Visual Studio Project Files. After your project files are generated, go ahead and open up that project back in Visual Studio 2017 by double-clicking the solution file. Now to make sure our server build target file is here, in your Solution Explorer, expand the source folder and make sure that server.targetcs is there. Now we can proceed to build the editor. So right-click on your project file name in your Solution Explorer and select Build. This process could take a while depending on the specifications of your machine. Once your build has succeeded, we can go ahead and close out of Visual Studio. And back in our project root directory, we can open up the editor by double-clicking on the Unreal Engine project file. And here we are in the familiar UE4 editor. The first thing I want to do is create a copy of the third-person example map. And I'll name that offline map. Then I'll also rename this server map. So here in our server map, I'll make some changes so we know that we are actually in the server So I changed the text to GameLift-UE4 server. Now I changed the text color to purple. And before we go to the offline map, I'll also go ahead and delete this third person character, since we won't be needing that because we have the network player start. Then open up the offline map. At this point, if your shaders still need to compile, let the engine finish compiling your shaders. So here we are in the offline map. I'll make a few changes here as well so that we know we are in the offline map. I'll also delete this third person character since we also don't need him here. Then I'll also delete all of the static meshes for this walkway. So here it says lighting needs to be rebuilt. So we'll proceed to do so. You'll encounter this error: Swarm failed to kick off, compile Unreal Lightmass. An Unreal Lightmass is a module that the engine needs to essentially build the lighting. So to compile the Unreal Lightmass module, we'll need to open up the Unreal Engine source build. So open up the Unreal Engine 4.26, double click on the UE4.sln. And here in the Solution Explorer, scroll down until you see a module called Unreal Lightmass. So right click on that module and select Build. Once the Unreal Lightmass module has finished building, we can exit out of Visual Studio. Then we'll head over back to our UE4 editor and attempt to build the lighting again. After the lighting is successfully built, we'll configure some of the project settings. So click on Settings, Project Settings. Then under Project, click on Maps and Modes. Under Default Map, click Show Advanced to expand it to show the advanced options. For Editor Startup Map, select the offline map. For the game default map, also select the offline map. And for the server default map, select the server map. Then click on Packaging. And under Packaging, expand that default packaging to see the advanced packaging options. For the option List of maps to include in a package build, add 2 array elements. Then add the maps by browsing it on your computer. By default, it should be in the folder third person CCP, maps, and they are the UMap files. So that was the offline map and add the server map. We can close the project settings. Now we can proceed to save and package our server build. Click on File, Package Project, and make sure your build configuration is set to Development and your build target is set to GameLift-UE4 server or your project name with the server suffix. Then we want to build for Windows 64-bit. I would recommend creating a folder specifically for your Unreal builds. Then select that folder. So the first time that you package your server build, it could take a while. We can click on Show Output Log to track the progress. Then we can also dock the log next to the content browser. Once that server build is complete, navigate to your build folder, click on Windows Server, and it should look something like this. So here's the GameLift-UE4 server executable file, but we want to be able to add a log parameter so we can see the logging during testing and developing. So right click on the executable, create shortcut, then right click on the shortcut and select properties. And in the target field at the very end, type in space dash log. This will show the server log whenever it's running. And click apply and OK. And we can start the server by double clicking on that shortcut with the log parameter. Now head back to the Unreal editor and we can test the connection to the dedicated server by test playing. For this test, I'll add 2 players. So total number of players will be 3. So we have 2 standalone client, 1 client in the editor. And the way to connect to the dedicated server is through a console command. Later on, we'll build a UI for this, but for now, we'll just use the Unreal console command. And to access the Unreal console command, you have to press the tilde key. It is the key under the escape button, under the escape key on your keyboard to the left of the number 1 key. So you can see here in my client, lower right hand client, the console popped up after I pressed the tilde key. And the command to connect to a local dedicated server is open 127.0.0.1, which is the address for localhost. And press enter. So that's our first client in. And we'll do the same for our client number 2. Press the tilde key, open up the console command, open 127.0.0.1, and press enter. And that's our second client. Now we proceed to do the same thing with our editor client, client number 3. And there we have it. We have 3 local clients connected to a local dedicated server. And that will conclude this episode of building games on AWS. In the next episode, we'll go over how to download and build the GameLift server SDK and then integrate it with our dedicated server build in Unreal Engine.